Hi, everyone. Welcome to Elevate Business Development Group's Speaker Spotlight. I'm Julie Burns, Elevate's Workforce Development Program Director, and I'm so happy you're here. Elevate BDG is a nimble one-stop shop for all of your training needs, especially now when almost everyone is working remotely. We offer instructor-led, live remote, and on-site training. We have a terrific lineup for you today, but before we get started, I'd like to briefly introduce our team. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce our CEO, Delvon Servine. Let me tell you a little something about Delvon. He says it's always Tuesday at Elevate, and don't I know it? According to statistics, more work gets done on Tuesdays than any other day. Again, it is my pleasure to introduce Delvon Servine.
Hello, my name is Delvon Servine, Chief Executive Officer of Elevate Business Development Group. Elevate Business Development Group is a professional skills training, coaching, consulting, and workforce management company that makes your employees better communicators, motivated team members, and stronger leaders. As a result of that training, your organization will experience higher productivity, fewer HR complaints, and a more positive working environment. Our diverse roster of trainers, customized training topics, and remote training solutions ensure your staff, managers, and executives will reach their peak workforce potential. Combining practical knowledge, science, gamification, and entertainment, our trainers convey complex ideas in an engaging, fun, and beneficial way that captures the attention of participants. Trainers are vetted to ensure adherence to these tenets of our signature style. Every one of our seminars, workshops, and coaching sessions are amusing, relatable, and informative. And during these trying times, we know that you're looking for alternative solutions to training your staff. And we are here to meet that challenge by providing the same type of training that we would live in person as we would live virtual training. And we do this through our unique blend of style to ensure that we use gamification and the science of training to capture attention even across this medium. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
As you can see, we are a small but mighty team. There's never a dull moment here at Elevate. Our speakers are our greatest asset, and you'll soon see why. We bring decades of experience and knowledge to the table, and we deliver the business training you need for your greatest asset, your workforce. Carl Flowers is a speaker. He trains all of our trainers the Elevate way to meet our high expectations. Carl has been entertaining and educating audiences for over 35 years. He's a graduate of the University of Illinois, Chicago, where he majored in speech and mass communications. Carl has conducted over 1,200 one-day seminars for a variety of businesses and organizations around the world. Please welcome Carl Flowers.
Good afternoon and welcome to Leading When Not in Charge. My name is Carl Flowers and I'll be your facilitator over the next several hours as we go through this very important topic of leadership. What does it mean to lead? And certainly what does it mean to lead when you're not in charge? Now, through the years, people have described leadership in various different ways. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Whither goeth the people? I must hasten to follow them, for I am their leader." Certainly, to see what kind of a leader you are, you turn around and see who's following you. A friend of mine once said to me, "Carl, you know, the person who leads the band must face the music." Not sure what he was talking about there, except that I thought I was in trouble. I don't know. So when we talk about leadership, the best thing to do is kind of take a look at maybe what the dictionary has to say. It's always a good idea to start in the dictionary. And here's a definition of leadership. I looked up the word leadership. It said, leadership is the ability to lead. Well, that's not very helpful. I thought, what is a leader? A leader is one who leads. Duh. But then I got to that root word, to lead. What does it mean to lead someone? Well, to lead is very simple. It means to show, to direct, to guide the course of another by going ahead of or along with. To show, to guide, to direct the course of another by going ahead of or along with. Now, a lot of times as I travel around the country and I'm going out in the evening, or I have to get back to the airport, and I'll ask somebody, where's a good restaurant? What's the best way to get back to the airport? I've noticed that people give directions in many different ways. Some people very specific. Well, you take Route 1 for 2.3 miles, you get off at exit 3, and then you go to the west, which is to the right, and then you go for 6.7 miles, and they've got all the details written down. And of course, I have no piece of paper. I don't really know what they're saying. Other people are more pictorial, more metaphorical, and they will say, well, you go down the road about 15 minutes and you're going to see a big red barn. And when you get to that red barn, you're going to turn left, and then you're going to go about 2 miles till you get to the fire station, and then you're going to turn right. And I'm never sure if I saw the red barn, the right red barn, or not. So sometimes the pictures don't help. You know what the best type of leadership, the best type of direction I like to get? Somebody says, I'm going that way. I'm in a white pickup truck. Why don't you follow me? I always find my way when I'm following other people. And certainly that's what leadership has to do, is we follow people. Now, the problem is, why should people follow you? Especially when you're not in charge. This is leadership when you don't have the authority. And I think for that we go to John Maxwell, who said this. In a book called The Laws of Leadership, John said, leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. So always the most influential leader is not necessarily the person in charge, the person with authority. Sometimes the influential leader is the person who in fact has people following them, who are the most people following them. So let's take a look at this word influence and see what we mean by influence. And there's a part in your workbook there, I think it's on page 6, that says circles of influence. This is you. You have the authority over you. You have authority over nobody else. You make decisions about you. You have authority just over you. Now you've got this circle, or in my case, a little oval in this description. This is the circle of influence. These are people who are near you. These are people who maybe work at your level or in your department. They're friends of yours, family, things like that. You have some influence over those people. They will listen to your recommendations for a place to eat, or book to read, a TV show to watch, or a movie to go to. So you have some influence over them at times, and at times you may suggest things you don't have influence, but that's that one circle of influence. There's a wider circle, which is the world at large, or at least your world, areas that you're concerned about, what's going on in your neighborhood, what's going on in your organization, in your company, what's happening on this project or that project. You may not be on the project, but you want to know what's going on. So these are areas that you can have influence. You can have more influence, of course, on your circle of influence, less influence in the area of concern. And it kind of looks like this if we put people in there. There is you in the inner circle, and you have direct influence over several people, close friends, people you work closely with. Maybe that's your boss. You may have influence on your boss, on the authority above you. And then those people have influence on other people. And in that secondary circle there, that is the area you're most likely to influence people to your way of thinking, to your thoughts, to your ideas. Then those people may have influence on other people in their circle of influence, but for you, it's just the circle of concern. So you see that every time you have some influence with somebody, you lead them in a little bit different way, and they can influence and lead other people in a little different way. So you can actually take your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns, your worries, and also your solutions, and you can suggest them to influential people who influence others, who influence others. How do you have that influence? So that's the next thing we look at, is what is influence and how do you have it? Well, to be influential with other people, you need to have certain skill sets and you need to have certain attitudes. And to discover what these are, I could give you a list, but it's more fun if we discover it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into groups. Now, because we're online, we're going to do our groups online. And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you an online assignment for your group. I'll explain the groups in a second, but your assignment is to brainstorm a list of 6 to 8 skills or 6 to 8 attitudes that you need to have influence in your organization. So what type of communication, problem solving, decision making skills, what type of creative skills do you need to influence people? And then what does your attitude have to be to influence other people? So in your group, each group is going to have about 10 minutes to come up with a list of 6 to 8 skills and 6 to 8 attitudes. Now, here's what's going to happen. The computer will magically divide you into 3 groups. When you get in your group, then you will each introduce yourself to each other in the group and pick a leader among you, pick a note taker, a leader, someone who will keep track of the ideas, who will ask the questions. And then again, just to remind you, your goal is to come up with 6 to 8 skills, 6 to 8 attitudes that you need to have influence in your organization. Now, by the way, when you're in your groups, there's no wagering, no gambling here, but this is somewhat of a competition. If you want to come up with 10 or 12 ideas, that is certainly acceptable. Let's see which group comes up with the most ideas for how to have influence in your organization. What skills do you need? What attitudes do you need? And then we'll take it from there. So right now I'm going to push the button. We're going to go into groups, and then you'll have 10 minutes in your groups, and I'll be in touch with each group to let you know how you're going. So here goes the magic button. You're in your groups. Okay, excellent. I hope you had a good time in your groups, and welcome back from that group exercise. What you've done is you've each group has given me the 2 most important skills and the 2 most important attitudes that they believe. I know each group had a number more ideas, and congratulations to group 2 who had the most ideas. But then I asked you to pick the 2 most important skills and 2 most important attitudes. We're going to talk about those for just a second here. So what we have is group 1 said that the most important skills are to be a good communicator. Certainly that's true. 70% of the time that something goes wrong in your organization is because someone miscommunicated. They said the wrong thing, or we heard the wrong words and we did the wrong thing. Certainly also an influencer or a good leader has to have good problem solving skills. Absolutely, I agree. Group 2 said that a good communicator, a good influencer, is also a good listener. They ask good questions and they listen well. Absolutely. In fact, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. What does that mean? We got to listen twice as much as we talk. A good influencer will ask people their opinion, ask them why they have that opinion, how they came to it, what are the ramifications of that. So by listening, you can actually steer people. And a good influencer is also, group 2 says, organized. Yes, you have to have great organization skills. Group 3 said you have to know and understand people. That was their most important point. Know and understand people. And I certainly agree with that, because we deal with different types of people. We have people who come from different places in the organization. They come from different places in the country, around the world. Today we have all different types of people working together. And so you have to understand the various types of people there are, and then you'll know how to communicate or persuade them. And that was group 3's second point, is you have to have good persuasive skills. Since you have no authority, you can't command people, so you have to be able to persuade them. And as you look at all these skills, I want to tell you that today, as we continue this class of leadership or leading when not in authority, we're going to work on all these things. We're going to show you ways to become a better communicator. We're going to show you a very good system for solving problems and making decisions. We're going to work on asking good questions and listening, on organization skills, on learning about people, all the different types of people there are, and how to persuade those different types. So all that is coming up. Now, the second question was, what are the effective attitudes that you need to influence people? Well, group 1 said you have to be positive. We certainly do live in a world that's full of negatives. And so the positive people are the ones who stand out, the ones who are always thinking of how to make something work or how it could be better. And in order to do that, group 1 also said you have to be confident. I absolutely agree. You gain confidence by doing things over and over again. Wouldn't it be great if you could go to the grocery store and buy a pound of confidence and a gallon of enthusiasm? But they don't sell it that way. So we have to practice to gain confidence. We have to do things over and over. And the more that we're involved with people, the more confident we become. Now, group 2 came up with a very good attitude. They said you have to be patient, and that is absolutely true. Sometimes people talk slower, sometimes people talk faster, sometimes people process information before they actually decide upon it. So you have to have patience as you're working with people, but you also have to be, group 2 says, persistent, and that is certainly true also. You've got to stick to your beliefs and keep working on them. Group 3, I like Group 3. They had a lot of fun in that group because they said you have to have a sense of humor. Sometimes things don't go the way you think you do. You can laugh it off. You can have some fun with a good, clean sense of humor. Group 3 also said you have to be solution oriented. You have to always look for the solutions. And that is certainly true. You've got to figure out what is the real solution that we need here and figure out ways to make things work. So great job. I've saved this whiteboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to send all that information to you so that you'll have some of those ideas. Now we're also going to just take a look at one more slide because this is not the first time I have done this exercise. And so what I want you to see is what other people have said in their groups. And so to have influence, to have skills, here are the skills that other groups have said: communication, listening, organized, be a motivator, be a problem solver. A lot of these are sounding familiar to what we came up with. Be creative, be inspiring or persuasive with people. You need to be able to prioritize your activities. So again, a lot of groups think the same way. These are all great skills to have. The second list now is the attitudes. Other groups have said, people skills, of course. You have to have people skills. Other groups have said you have to be positive, confident. You have to have that confidence. We came up with those, a good sense of humor. You have to be goal-oriented, focusing on the end result, focusing on the mission. Be honest, have integrity, be determined, be persistent, we said. Have empathy for other people. Understand what other people are going through. And be patient. Again, we had that one also. So you can see that what you have done is inconsistent with other groups. Most groups come up with similar answers. These are all great skills and attitudes. I'd like you to do one more thing. I would like you to make a list on your page or look at your paper and put a circle or a star around the things that are your strengths in life. One or two things off this list of skills and one or two things off the attitude. What are you good at? What's your strength? It's very important to know your strengths. Secondly, put a circle around or put an arrow by what do you want to get better at? How do you want to improve? Where do you want to work on in the coming days? Because that'll give us a little marching orders for this class. Now, when you talk about influence, we have influence at several levels. And the last thing I want to share with you in this little message is there are 4 levels of influence. You start out with the modeling level, and the modeling level tells you what they see and hear you do. So you model the behavior you want. You model the ideas. This is really the lowest level of influence, but it does work when you are calm and others are losing their control, when you are logical, when others get overly emotional, when you come up with solutions rather than complaints. People start watching you, and that's a step of influence, and they start doing it your way. The second level is another M letter, and that's motivate. And when you motivate people, you can't really motivate them, but you do things that are motivational to them. When you listen to other people's ideas, that is encouraging to them and motivational. They begin to have confidence in themselves. When you encourage people to and praise them for and communicate well with them, praise them for what they do well, that gives them, again, confidence and the courage to step out and do the right thing. The next step of influence is where you're actually in a mentoring relationship, where you have taken your knowledge and you're putting it in somebody else's life. You are, in fact, duplicating yourself and others. And as you go on in your career, you'll become a mentor of others. Right now, I always suggest to people, look for someone who can duplicate themselves in you. Find a mentor for yourself. Finally, you start multiplying yourself by teaching those people you mentored to teach other people the same skills and attitudes. So that looks at the levels of influence. So as we go forward, I would just put all this in a final picture for you. There are certain skills that we all need to develop to be more influential. And we can put them in these 3 categories. One of the categories is your time. Can you prioritize your time? Can you make decisions effectively? Can you run effective meetings? Can you delegate effectively? All these things are productivity skills that revolve around using your time well. Secondly, do you use words wisely? Do you communicate well? Do you make good presentations? Do you write effective emails? Do you write effective reports? And thirdly, do you know the numbers? How are you on the financial skills? Do you know the key performance indicators, what are called KPIs, or the metrics of your organization? You see, people who use their time well, who use their words well, and who know the numbers automatically become influential people within that organization. So we'll leave it there for now, and we'll see you on the next tape.
Thank you. That was great. Remember, we make it fast, easy, and fun to bring any of our trainers to your workplace. More on that later. Next up, Star Babatune. Star is a dynamic trainer, award-winning speaker, and accomplished attorney specializing in HR and legal issues. Star connects with participants in an amazing way that leaves a lasting effect. She brings a deep technical and legal knowledge to our HR, supervisory, and communication courses. And with over a decade of performance on stage, television, and the big screen, she is one of our most acclaimed trainers. Star's practical knowledge and inspirational energy extends from the workplace to the personal, so that audiences everywhere are motivated to find their own inner star. Please welcome Star Babatune.
Claire was livid. She just found out that 2 of her colleagues were given a very high-profile assignment she felt should have come to her. So she calls her supervisor, Max, and I'm telling you, she is hot. Hello, Max. This is Claire. I just read your email and you gave that assignment to Sue and David. I'm shocked. That should have come to me. I feel like you are always doing this to me and it's not fair. Click. Now, as you can imagine, Max, her boss, when he gets her voicemail, he is not too happy. His first thought is that he's going to walk out there on the floor to her cubicle and give her a few words about speaking to him in that manner. Or, no, he's going to summon her into his office. He's going to stand behind his big walnut desk and he's going to say, look, I'm the boss. I make the decisions. And if you don't like it, you're just going to have to learn to live with it. That's how he immediately wants to respond. But instead of doing that, takes a deep breath. And he does an assessment. He assesses how he feels physically. He can feel that his face is hot. He can feel that little tingling in the back of his ears, right? He can feel the tension in his shoulders and his arms. And then he starts to assess his emotional state. He is pissed off. He's annoyed. He feels disrespected. He feels defensive. Now he knows if he goes out there and does either of the 2 things that he thought of first, it will not end well. It won't be the most productive outcome. So instead of doing that, he does this assessment and then he continues. Why might he be feeling this way? And the other thing he does is he starts thinking about Claire. Why might she be reacting this way? That's not the way Claire normally reacts. And he understands she just did a big move with her family. She's relatively new to the team and she's got a couple of pretty heavy assignments. So he takes all that into consideration, brings her into his office. He steps around his desk and sits on the side of his desk. He looks her in the eye and he says, Claire, I understand that you're upset about the assignment. Why don't you tell me your concerns? And Claire, the first thing she does is apologize for that phone call. She shares her concerns and Max listens, validates her concerns, but lets her know the decision stands. He stands behind his reasons for doing that, and that's the way it's going to be this time. Claire is not thrilled with it, but she accepts it and she moves on. That, ladies and gentlemen, is emotional intelligence at work. Hi, my name is Star Babatune. I have the pleasure of being your trainer. A little about me. I'm an attorney, speaker, and trainer. My background is in employment litigation, so I handled cases in discrimination, harassment, wrongful termination. And I'll tell you this, I remember when I was practicing law that some attorneys would just get along really well with the opposing counsel, get them to do all kinds of concessions, and they worked very well with the employees as well. I also observed attorneys who did not get along with opposing counsel, did not treat employees well, and everything always escalated into a mess. Now, I didn't understand it at the time, but since then, I've come to realize the difference between that attorney and the other attorney was emotional intelligence. Now, so what is this? What is this emotional intelligence? I know that we all hear this this phrase bantied about, and so let's talk about it. Emotional intelligence is a person's ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, not just our own emotions, but the emotions of others. And I don't mean manage other people's emotions, but manage our response to other people's emotions. It helps us make better decisions, solve problems more effectively, and better communicate with others. The whole concept of emotional intelligence was made popular in the 1990s by psychologist and social science journalist Daniel Goleman in his book, Emotional Intelligence. You might be asking, okay, well, that's nice. Why do I care? Here's the deal. Emotional intelligence is a critical skill when it comes to both personal and professional development. And you know what? It makes a difference in the workplace. Employees with high emotional intelligence, these are the ones who stay calm under pressure. These are the ones who are able to resolve conflict effectively. They show empathy for their team members. They respond appropriately. These are the people who solve problems, and they make more thoughtful business decisions. These are the kind of people that you want on your team and in your organization. Heck, this is the kind of person that we want to be, yes? So let's compare that with employees who have low emotional intelligence. These people, these are the ones that always play the role of victim. Something goes wrong, it's always somebody else's fault, right? They don't take any personal responsibility for their errors. They have either an aggressive or a passive communication style. If they're passive, they don't tell you exactly how they feel, but then they'll talk behind your back, or they'll do things to sabotage the situation. Or they're aggressive, they're in your face, right? These are the type of people who just refuse to work as a team, and they're very dismissive of the opinions of others if they listen at all. Now, just comparing the high IQ person with the low IQ person, which one do you want on your team, in your organization? Which one do you want to be? I'm just going to go ahead and assume you would rather have the one person with high emotional intelligence. So how do we get it? Well, how do we work on it? How do we enhance it? All right. So before we can do that, we need to talk about the basic concepts of emotional intelligence. And there are 5 basic concepts. There is self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. 5 basic concepts. And I want to talk to you a little bit about 2 of them, self-awareness and empathy. I like to call them self-awareness and other awareness. So let's talk about self-awareness. Here's what we know. We feel emotions all the time. Most of the time, we are barely aware of our emotions, but we make decisions and we act and we react automatically based on those emotions. A person with high emotional intelligence, a person who is self-aware, is aware of their own physical and emotional state. That is a person who explores why they feel what they feel, and they decide how they want to respond. And this is exactly what Max did in the story that I shared with you. He became aware of how he felt physically, how he felt emotionally. He thought about why he might be feeling that way. I know she left a very terse message. He didn't like that, but he also remembered he just came from a meeting that didn't go so well, so he's already in a particular emotional state. And then he decided how he wanted to respond. He thought also about Claire. What is she going through? And that brings us to other awareness. Being other aware means that you consider the perspective, the experiences, the emotions of others, and you use that information to understand why they behave the way they do. That's exactly what Max did. He thought about the fact that Claire had gone through a very big move. She was new to the team and she had a couple of tough assignments. He took all of that into consideration when he finally addressed her. And as you saw in the story, he came from a calm, understanding place. She immediately apologized. As I said, emotional intelligence at work. So I know what you're thinking now. Oh my gosh, this is great. I'd like to have more of this. I want more information. This is what I want in my team. This is what I want in my organization. Great. All you have to do is take the full training and I'd be glad to share more information with you. I will leave you with this. When times are normal, having emotional intelligence is going to help us navigate through our relationships, navigate through the twists and turns of life. But in times of change and uncertainty, like what we're going through right now, having the ability to tap into one's emotional intelligence becomes crucial. My name is Star Babatune. This is Emotional Intelligence at Work. Talk to you soon.
Fantastic. Our trainers and speakers bring it all. Next up is Mac Kerfman. Mac is a practical and enthusiastic trainer, entrepreneur, business consultant, speaker, coach, and author. He has over 30 years of experience in business and government leadership excellence and is certified in Microsoft Project Management. Mac has the unique ability to break down complex problems, find the root cause, and develop easy-to-implement solutions. This ability to connect makes Mac one of our favorite trainers for project management, critical thinking, and creative problem solving, just to name a few of Mac's favorite topics. Please welcome Mac Kerfman.
In my role as a consultant and a trainer, I have literally been in thousands of different organizations. And what they all tell me is when they look to hire people or to promote people, they want to make sure that they can solve problems. And they want them to be able to solve problems in a systematic and an organized way. My late father-in-law, when we would go golfing and I would hit a good shot once in a while, he would say to me, even a blind squirrel can find a nut once in a while. That's why they want to make sure that they can solve problems, their employees can solve problems in a systematic and organized way. And one of those things they particularly look for is their ability to solve the real problem. To dig away the stuff from the top, get down below the ground, and find the root of the problem, to solve the root cause. They look for people who can do root cause analysis. The root cause analysis, RCA, is a critical issue when it comes to solving problems. 10 years ago, I got sick. My son brought home a virus from school. He had it for a couple of days, gave it to me, and I got really sick from it. It was Thursday when I started feeling poorly. Friday, all weekend long, I felt horrible. I thought I had the flu. My wife convinced me on Tuesday to go to the doctor. Went to the doctor, saw the PA, saw the physician's assistant, and she swabbed me for the flu. It wasn't the flu. So she took blood, analyzed it there in the office, and determined it wasn't bacterial, but it was a virus, some virus. They didn't identify what the virus was, just some virus. So here's what she said to me. She said, it's acting like the flu. It's presenting like the flu. Go home and continue to treat it like the flu. Okay. So she listened to my lungs. They were okay. Sent me home, continued treating it like the flu. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday felt worse. Thursday felt worse. Friday, I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't do anything. My wife came home Friday night from work, and she took one look at me and she said, we're going to the ER. Well, I didn't want to go to the ER, so she did convince me to go to the urgent care place around the corner, Fortunately, it was around the corner, because when my wife and my son helped me in the door, the doctors and the staff in the little urgent care place did two things to immediately save my life. One was they slapped oxygen on me, and the second one was they dialed 911 for the ambulance. The ambulance took me to the ER. The docs in the ER said, "You are in big trouble." They put the little pulse oxygen meter on my finger. It's supposed to read high 90s, almost 100. It's reading the amount of oxygen in your blood. And the mine read 82. The doc said, "You are in big trouble." So they admitted me right away. In fact, early that next morning, that was Friday night, early Saturday morning, they woke me up like 3 o'clock in the morning and said, "No, this isn't working either, so we got to do something right away." So they shipped me right away to the ICU, put me in the ICU. There I stayed for 6 days, 10 days total in the hospital. And the long and short of it was when the doctors actually came to my wife twice to prepare her, because they did not think I was going to make it. Now, fortunately, I did make it. But there are a couple of things that I learned from that experience. The first thing that I learned was I am never, ever going to treat just the symptoms of the problem. Because that's what that PA told me to do, didn't she? She said, go home and continue to treat what? The symptoms, not the underlying cause, not the virus itself. She said, treat the symptoms. So I am no longer going to treat the symptoms of anything, whether it's my health or anything else. I need to dig down beneath the surface to figure out what's really going on. And see, that's what companies look for. They look for people who can dig down beneath that surface, clear away the junk, because there's going to be a lot of excuses on top. There's going to be a lot of, well, we did this because of this, and you got to clear away all that and figure out what's the root cause. Now, fortunately, there's some great tools for root cause analysis. The first one, it's the easiest, and I find it one of the best tools to use. The first one is called the 5 Whys. Called the 5 Whys. It's a very simple process, because here's all you do. You ask why 5 times. That's all. That's all you do is you ask why 5 times. You're going to be like a little 2-year-old, to his parents. Why, Daddy, right? I did this. I was a consultant that was hired by a large doctor's office, a medical practice, many different doctors in the practice, large building, looks like a hospital. But I was hired to come in and do a little bit of figuring out what was going on. The issue was that the medical supplies from the supply depot that they had in the medical office there, the medical supplies were arriving late to the exam rooms. When the nurse or the doctor called from the exam room, it would take a long time for those medical supplies to come to the exam room. So they hired me to come figure out what the problem was. But they told me what they thought the problem was. And the problem was Charlie. Charlie was the guy who delivered the medical supplies from the medical depot that they had, the closet that they stored all these supplies in. He was the person who brought the supplies to the exam room. I said, he's always late. He just kind of is a laggard. He's late. We think it's him. So I said, okay, well, let's just see. So I started asking questions. Well, why is Charlie late? Well, he takes a long time. Well, why does he take a long time? Well, because this, and I said, well, why this? And the further down this chain we got, the further into the whys we got, we figured out that the supply depot was all the way the other end of the building from the exam rooms. The exam rooms were on one end of the building, and the medical supply depot was on the other end of the building. Again, it was a very large building. And it wasn't the fact that Charlie was late, it was the fact that it was a long ways. So all we did was ask why 5 times, and we figured out it was too far away. So what was the solution? Yes, move the supply closet, move the supply depot closer to the exam rooms. And you know what the beautiful thing was? There were a couple of beautiful things that came out of it. Number one, I got paid. I got paid to tell them that. I just asked 5 questions. That's all I did. And the second thing was it was an easy fix for them. So being able to figure out what the root cause is going to be invaluable to you and to your organization. There's another root cause analysis tool. It's called Ishikawa or fishbone analysis. You might have seen it. It looks like a fishbone. It was named after the Japanese man who invented it. And what you do with that fishbone analysis is from that main trunk, okay, Charlie's late, right? Supplies for the supply depot are late to the exam rooms. Well, what are all the possible causes? So coming off that fishbone, right, are the possible causes. So we can kind of group them in categories, and then from those categories say, well, is it the machine that he's bringing it on, the cart, and maybe the problem is the wheels on the cart. That'd be one branch of it. Maybe the other one is it's a small cart, so he has to make multiple trips. So the idea is to figure out what are all the possible root causes. Dig down beneath the surface. Start asking questions, whether it's 5 whys or using the fishbone diagram or many, many other tools. What's the real problem? Because we can't afford, organizations can't afford today to just treat the surface issues. Because guess what? That problem is going to come back. So using those root cause analysis tools is going to be invaluable.
We have another amazing trainer coming up next. Connie Rose is a PhD candidate in executive leadership and has a master's degree in adult learning. Connie works with us and our clients to facilitate training that makes an impact on our audiences and ensures organizational goals are met. Her excellent interpersonal, organizational, and analytical skills make Connie another of our favorite trainers. Connie's warm personality and calm demeanor bring a sense of optimism to any busy workplace. We can all benefit from the practical application of Connie's tips and techniques on how to manage stress. It is my pleasure to present Connie Rose.
Welcome to Stress Management with Connie Rose, coming to you from sunny Florida. Today's workers are experiencing job burnout and stress in epidemic proportions. They oftentimes feel stressed out, insecure, and misunderstood. For most, the demands of the workplace combined with the demands of home have become too much to handle. Today, we're going to explore the causes of such stress and suggest general and specific stress management strategies that workers can use every day in their professional and personal lives. We're going to define stress and its effects. We're going to take a deeper look at stress and what it is. And we're going to provide coping with stress, creating a work action plan. That's right, you're going to walk away with a work action plan. But before we dive into today's conversation, what are your personal objectives? What would you like to walk away with today? And how can I help you achieve stress management? Defining stress and its effects. So what is stress? Well, it's mental, physical, and behavioral response to something that could threaten your safety or your well-being. Now, I have a little mental check-in that I want to do with you. And I'm going to read a couple of different sections. And what I want you to do is see which one of these applies to you. And you know what? If more than one does, that is perfectly okay. So you ready? You quickly walk by someone at the office to avoid a conversation simply because you just don't have the energy to engage. You can't shake the free-floating anxiety that seems to cling to you. Small things that once didn't bother you now just set you off. And when you come home, your loved ones say, "Whoa, you look terrible." How did you do with the mental checklist? Now let's talk a little bit more about defining stress and its effects. What are you currently doing to reduce or lessen the impact of some of the stressors in your own life, especially if you're in a leadership role? Are you managing any kind of serious health events for yourself or a loved one, such as diabetes, heart disease, stomach problems, allergies? And what challenges do you expect as you try to reduce and resolve some of the stressors in your lives and the lives of your colleagues and your loved ones? And you know what? There is something that's actually called the stress tax. That's right, the stress tax. And it's errors, absenteeisms, conflict, low morale, high staff turnover, poor decisions or no decisions, and accidents. Stressors lead to stimuli, which evoke a response. There's no differences in the way we adapt and respond to physical or psychological stressors. The greater the gap between the demand and the resources, the more stressful a situation becomes for us. Some stressors are small and others create major negative events. Some events are uncontrollable, but yet may have the biggest event on our physical and emotional health. Small events chronically repeated over a long period of time can be equally taxing. What about this? Hey, dear stress, let's break up. Now let's dive in and take a little bit deeper look. Stress can be about changing lifestyles. Some employees feel that life has become more stressful, although those who have successfully leveraged technology and have established a satisfying balance of health, wellness, and work may not feel it exactly that way. Stress can be all about power, because you see, many employees feel more stressed when they feel powerless to change the way things are. Stress is an equal opportunity opponent. It affects every level in organization, every age, and every culture. Stress can be about self-esteem, because you see, when self-esteem is high, people feel more powerful and therefore less reactive to negative stressors. But when self-esteem is low, people feel like they have no power to make any changes that can cause more stress. Change can be exciting, yes it can, and something that you look forward to, even if you have to do the extra work to get the changes and put them into place. That unexpected change, yes, that can bring negative stress with it, even though you can see that change itself is going to have many positive aspects. And if you don't like the situation we find ourselves in, if we are familiar with being in that situation, or if we feel that at least we know what will happen when we are in this situation, and we find it, then we can find it less stressful than when we are stepping into the unknown. Let's talk about creating an action plan. I love journaling. And I want to show you what I simply use, right? This is my journal, this is my pen. You see, they kind of match. And it's all about simply writing down your thoughts and your feelings so you can understand them more clearly. You can reduce stress, which helps you manage your anxiety. It's a private way of expressing your emotion, provides an opportunity to better understand stressors. Come up with a plan either for resolving the situation or coping with it more positively. In my journal, I also do a gratitude log. I write down 3 things at the end of the day that I am grateful for. And then in the morning, I set my intentions. And yes, I also still write it in my gratitude log. And I set my intentions on what's going to happen today, that I'm grateful that I woke up, that the sun is shining, or even if it's raining outside. Now, here are some tried and tested stress management techniques. You want to prioritize your mental well-being and physical health over any other task. Because if you don't have those, how are you going to do any other task? And you've got to be willing to do whatever you need to do to improve your life and to deal with stress. You develop healthy responses. You do your very best to make healthy food choices. You exercise. That is a great stress buster. Make time for hobbies and your favorite activities. And boy, that good quality sleep. You limit your caffeine intake late in the day. You minimize stimulating activities such as your computer, smartphones, and television. If you have a blue light glasses, you know what? Those help to reduce the stimulation. You're going to establish boundaries because you see, in today's digital world, it is easy to feel the pressure of being available 24 hours a day. You're going to create a routine. How do you set the beginning of your work day? And what routine do you have that says this is the end of the work day? I want you to consider making a rule to not check email from home in the evening. And if you can, not to even answer the phone in the evening, and especially during dinner and family time. Take time to recharge, to avoid the negative effects of chronic stress and burnout. Because you see, we need time to replenish and return to our pre-stress level of functioning. Disconnect from time to time in a way that fits your needs and preferences. And when you're not able to take time off, get a quick boost by turning off your smartphone and focusing your attention on a non-work activity just for a while. Now, I have this really great activity, and it's called the 5 Senses Activity. And what I'm going to ask you to do is take a deep breath. Here we go. Take a really deep breath. Breathe in. Expand that diaphragm, and as you exhale, let it all out. And now I want you to silently say to yourself, 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. This is a great way to ground yourself into the here and now and into the present moment. So we're at that time, we're winding down, and I'd like to give you an additional activity. I want you to write down, what are the things that are going really well for you right now? What are some of the areas that you may be able to improve in stress management? And what are some of the resources that you have available to you? Take a moment and write those down. And now I want you to do this for me. As a result of what we've learned here today in this workshop, I want you to write down 2 things that you're going to do different, 1 thing that you're going to change, and 1 thing that you're going to share. I really appreciate you being with me today. Thank you so much for being here, for actively participating, and for your insightful questions and input. Thank you very much.
Steve is a new virtual manager. Now, he's managed before, but never in this new normal, this virtual environment. He has 6 members on his team, and for the most part, things have been going pretty well, with the exception of one thing, a performance management issue with Ron. Now, Steve has to have a discussion with Ron, and he needs to talk to him about 2 specific issues. Number 1, Ron has been turning work in late. The problem with that is that the team has been late with projects, and it's cost the company money. When team members have called Ron about projects to get him to turn things in on time, he's been aggressive, he's been defensive, he's been rude, and so they have now turned this issue over to Steve and talked to him about it. Steve has reached out to Ron several times, and what he's found, and this is the second issue, is that typically his calls go unanswered. When he sends Ron emails, when Ron responds, if he responds at all, his replies are usually short, curt, and they don't even address the issue. So Steve has a performance management problem, and he's got to deal with it. Can you relate to Steve? How are you doing in this new normal of managing virtual teams? I'm Dr. Angela Massey, and I want to welcome you to leading virtual and remote teams. And in our time together, I'm going to share a few tips with you that I am sure will help you lead your virtual team to be a productive team and a happy team and a team that makes you some money, right? Okay, the first thing that I'm going to cover, I'm going to give you the ground rules for managing or leading a virtual team. There are 4 things you need to know. And then I'm going to move into talking about performance management from a distance. And again, I'm going to give you 4 techniques or 4 tips that you can employ to lead your virtual or remote team. So let's get into it. The ground rules. The first ground rule is shared objectives. So what do I mean by that? You want to make sure that you are sharing the objectives of the organization with your team, and that you come up with some goals for your team, as well as talking to people on your team about their own individual objectives, their own individual goals. And remember, and I'm sure you've probably heard this acronym many, many times, but a goal should be SMART. It should be specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. The second ground rule for leading your virtual team is that everyone on the team needs to have a knowledge of what to do. In other words, everyone on the team needs to know how to do their job. Which leads me to the third ground rule, and I'm going to tie these both together. And that is, everyone on your team should have the ability to do the job. Not just the knowledge, but the ability as well. Here's what I mean. There's a person on our team, and I work in a virtual setting most of the time, and she's our compliance person. She knows the rules and the laws like the back of her hand. That's her knowledge. Her ability to do the job is when she can look at something and flesh it out and explain it to lay people like the rest of the team. For me, for example, I know very little about compliance. In fact, I know nothing about compliance. But when she talks to us, she has the ability to break it down so that the rest of us understand it. So that's the tie-in of those 2 ground rules: the knowledge of what to do and the ability to do it. The 4th ground rule that I want you to jot down, and make sure you just go ahead and write this down because this is critical. They have to have the desire to do it. I'm going to say that again, and I'm going to slow it down. They have to have the desire to do it. Let's go back and visit Steve and Ron. Ron's real issue, he had no desire to really do his job. And I'm willing to bet that Ron was probably a little bit of a performance management issue or problem when they were working in a different environment, when they were working from the office. If you have someone on your team that has no desire to do the job, guess what? They're not going to be productive. Which leads me to dealing with those performance management issues. How do you manage performance from a distance? You can't call them in your office. Well, actually you can, but it's your virtual office. But how do you manage that? Well, the first thing that I want you to remember, and please write this down, this is gold. Gold. People have to be managed for results and not activities. So that's your first technique. Manage for results, not activities. For example, there's someone on your team who has to write a weekly blog and post that blog, and what is expected from that blog is that 5 new people sign up for your newsletter, for information from your company. They get on the mailing list. That's the result. When that person writes that blog post, that's an activity. When 5 people sign up from that blog post, that's results. If only 2 people sign up from that blog post, bad results. So you want to manage for results and not activities. Number 2, you also want to be proactive and not reactive. Let's look at Steve's situation again. The first call that he received from one of his team members about Ron being late, or even the first time that a project was late, Steve could have been a little bit more proactive and reached out to Ron then to find out what was going on, to see if perhaps Ron needed more resources. Did he have everything to do his job? Which, by the way, you should be doing to make sure, do people have everything they need to do their jobs? Can they get to things in the cloud? How can they access information? Had Steve chosen to be proactive rather than reactive, perhaps the issue with Ron wouldn't be as big of an issue as it is now. The third thing that you want to do is check in often. Now, let me caution you here. Don't become a micromanager. People don't want you calling them all the time or sending them a trillion emails. How you doing with that? What's going on? That's really a turnoff, and it will shut people down. However, you've got to find that balance with checking in with people on your team and micromanaging people on your team. My suggestion is that you create what I like to call a team matrix. And on this team matrix, you're going to follow the project, the deadline, the resources, and check-in dates. And I suggest that you put some of that accountability, put some accountability on the employee for them to check in with you, so that you're not always checking in with them and you don't always look like the bad guy. The fourth way to manage deal with the performance management issue from a distance, you're not gonna like this one, but it's the reality. If you have someone on your team that has no desire to do the job, even though they have the knowledge and ability, and they are an issue, and you've done everything that you can do, you just might have to remove the person from the team. I know that doesn't feel good. I've had to fire someone before, and it's not a good feeling. You think about the fact that they have a family and et cetera, but guess what? If they're not being productive and not bringing their best to the team, and you've dealt with the issues, you just might have to remove them. So I want to go over that one more time. So to make sure that you have everything, ground rules, make sure that you share objectives, that people have a knowledge of what to do, the ability to do it, and the desire to do it. And 4 steps to manage performance from a distance. You want to manage for results, not activities. Be proactive, not reactive. Check in often, and remove people from the team that are not productive if need be. This is Dr. Angela Massey, and I'd love to come to your organization virtually to talk about leading virtual and remote teams. It's a 6-hour class, and we will have a blast, and you will learn a lot.
I told you we had a terrific lineup for you today, and I trust that you agree. You can bring any of our fabulous trainers to your organization for training that is sure to make a difference in your workforce. Whether you choose Elevate Remote or traditional on-site training, we deliver. We make it fast. Just call me to set up your training. We make it easy. Tell me what you want, and I will get it for you. We make it fun. Think of all the fun you will have, not spending hours setting up training classes. For more information, call me or email me at the information below. That's a wrap, folks. Thanks for being here.